let's take a look at the excerpt from Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 6, the second movement. At the end of this video, I will play the excerpt through, but I'd like to begin by discussing some practice strategies. So this movement is a waltz in 5/4 time. And most of the time when we're looking at 5/4, especially an upbeat 5/4 like we have here, we're going to have either a combination of 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2, and a lot of the time you'll see that throughout the movement or throughout the piece, it will flip between those two patterns. Now here, for the most part, we are looking at 2 plus 3, and you can see this by the way it's slurred. So you have 2 beats grouped together, and then 3 beats, and then 2, and then 3, and so forth. So that tells us that beat 1 is important and beat 3 is important. This is going to be helpful when we get into the phrasing and the shaping of this. So the first step for me, learning anything new, is going to be to work on intonation. And I like to do this by playing slowly, one note at a time, without any bowings of rhythm even. And I'm just listening for good pitch. Now I also like to do this with a drone, and for this excerpt, the drone you would use is D, and it works for the entire excerpt, so definitely try that out. It's very, very helpful. Now, with or without the drone, we want full bows and just really good sound and listening for pitch. Right, so just like that, I would go phrase by phrase, not necessarily doing large sections. Once I'm more familiar with it, I might go through and actually play the whole excerpt in this way, just sort of to do some intonation maintenance work. But when I'm just starting out learning it, keep it to very short segments, maybe about 2 bars. Here, 2 bars work really, really well. Once I'm feeling that my intonation is falling into place, then I can add some of the other aspects. So I'm going to add the bowing in. I'm still going to keep this fairly slow. Now notice I play the first phrase on the D string, and I think that's really helpful for preserving the same color, and I really recommend that you try this fingering out as well. Now I've added the bowing in. I'm a little bit faster. I'm going to start to get closer to tempo and really to think about how am I going to do this shape. So we've got 2 notes, mezzo forte, then crescendo. And the crescendo, I have 3 beats to do the crescendo. So I want more bow. So I need to plan that out. I'm going to start in the middle of the bow, get to the tip on the 2 beats, the first 2 beats that I have, and then I'm going to have the entire bow for my 3 beats in the crescendo. That's going to work really well. Now when I get to measure 2, this is the fullest moment of that phrase. So go ahead and use the whole bow on the first 2 beats, and it's going to be on the on beats 3, 4, and 5, that dotted half note where we need to taper and actually not use the whole bow, because I want to start the second phrase exactly in the same way. So starting in the middle, whole bow here, and taper. Right? So the taper, I start with kind of a dense bow at the beginning, that C sharp, and then I release as I get to the middle. Really lighten up in the right hand. I want to let the elbow drop and just do this by lengthening the fingers. And then I end up in the middle, and I can do the second phrase, start the second phrase in the same way. Because I have the same pattern. 2 beats will take me to the tip. And then 3 beats, I have the crescendo, and that's going to take me to the frog. Now notice I'm starting this phrase on the A string. And you want to be really careful with how you start that first A. It cannot pop out, and it certainly can't be louder than the C sharp that you just played before. So same thing, I'm in the middle of the bow, right, because I took care of my C sharp to come to the middle, and then now I can start in the middle again. Now this one goes on. There's no diminuendo here marked, so just keep the sound going and vibrate, and you actually want to go into measure 5. Go to here. Alright, so I'm playing a little bit under tempo, but enough that we get an idea of the shaping. So 5 stays definitely very full and vibrant. And then when you get to this in figure in measure 6, think very playful. And you can practice it slowly and really exaggerate this articulation, shorten. When it goes faster, I don't actually come up off the string too high when it's faster. Kind of almost pretty much staying on the string. You just want to get that resonance during that little rest, so we are clear that there is a space there. And then getting into this passage with the glissando. Right, so a few things to look at here. And the very first one is going to be just to reiterate, just getting the notes in tune and making sure that you know exactly where you're going, because otherwise there's just a lot going on in this little passage. There's a glissando, a crescendo, a fortissimo, a bunch of kind of strange maybe bowings at first, it seems, right? So you have a very specific kind of bowing pattern, and then you have all of the up bows as well to deal with. So first thing is just work on the shift. I just do it by sliding up and down. Then you want to play note by note, just like we did before. Just one note at a time. Right? Just placing everything super in tune, checking any shifts. If there's another shift that you need to work out here, do it in the same way, just repeating between the two notes. Then let's look at the bowing, because this is in fortissimo. We need to keep that in mind when we think about the bowing distribution. So I'm going to save my bow at the beginning because I want to have a lot of bow on the second note. Save. So I can give lots here. Kind of, you want to give it a little bit more speed when you get to that top note. And then whole bow. Stay in the upper half. And then so that will gradually, as it comes to the frog, will actually get quieter naturally as you fit those little notes in. So once you've tuned out every note, what you can try doing is playing it by adding one note to the passage at a time, maybe, and then and so forth. And I would do that until I get all of the passage in. Next, coming out of this, I come to measure 9, and this here is no longer the melody. So at the beginning you're playing the melody, and now this is the counter melody or an accompaniment. And it still has some shaping, but of course we're not going to be as maybe exuberant in the phrasing here. Starting out, we just want a nice clean, kind of very warm vibrato, a little bit almost on the airy side. I like this to have a lot of bow speed. So in 9, I do use quite a bit of bow. But on this next 3 notes, careful that you don't get all the way to the tip, because it's going to be awkward to do the up-ups. So for the up-ups, I'm not starting at the tip, and I like to get a little index finger action here, just to make sure that the first note starts with clarity. And now here, I'm going to end up with a pretty full bow. But here, I want to slow the bow down during the diminuendo, and definitely don't waste too much on the first note either, because if you get too low in the bow, it's going to get a little tricky. So I use about half a bow, and then drastically slower. Now here the opposite, you want to start slow bow, and then spend as you go up, right? So I start slow bow, a little more, and release. So really important that we have that space for the rest. So I make sure that I push the first 2 really more, a little less. So if I can get lots of bow speed on the first up bow, it's going to be pretty easy for me to get softer. And if I don't, we'll actually want to do the opposite. And the natural kind of desire, we want to crescendo there. It's more natural for us to crescendo into the downbeat, and here it's the opposite. That this is measure 12. Measure 12 goes to the middle of the bar, right to that A. Release, and then so more, less, and then here, sort of like you're sighing a little bit. It's kind of pretty neutral here. Just want a really nice articulation, and not too short on these either. They're kind of they're short-ish, but think more brush. So we don't want something like that. A little bit more on the string, and then very discreetly. So I substitute a finger there. I'm doing this with 4. I sub to a 2. Very discreet and careful not to accent the bow on the little turnaround.